You are listening to the Property Marketing Show with your hosts, Tom and Neil. The show that's all about marketing your property properly.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Property Marketing Show. I'm Neil Whitfield, and I'm here with my co-host, Tom Durrant.
Hi, guys.
And this week, we're delighted to be joined by Elaine Penhaul of Lemon and Lime Interiors and author of the best-selling book, Sell High, Sell Fast. So, Elaine, say hello.
Hello.
Really pleased to have you here, Elaine. Perhaps just for our guests, I mean, we've spoken before, but perhaps if you could just give us a little bit of background as to why you're here and how you can perhaps talk to us about property marketing.
Lovely to be here. Many thanks for the invitation. And I'm here to help your audience, Neil, Tom, to maximise their property sales. So we are a multi-international award-winning property staging business. We work nationally in the premium end of the property market, and we achieve sales of often 10 to 15% over guide price, up to 4 times faster than properties are achieving without staging first. So I'm here today to talk to your audience with you about how they can work with staging to achieve those kind of sales for themselves, and going along with that, the commission, the fees, because they're bringing more value to their proposition, and also becoming agent of choice, so getting significantly more listings in their area than they would otherwise be able to do so.
Fantastic.
Elaine, so do you just work with new homes or second-hand homes? So this is where people, so are you staging empty properties, or are you basically making properties that people are living in look even more glamorous?
We do both. We are unusual in the UK staging market in that we have pretty much a 50-50 proposition for occupied homes and vacant homes. So we can do anything and everything from getting an occupied home decluttered, decorated, new carpets, bringing in a few additional accessories or some furniture where there are gaps, right the way through to working with developers to fully furnish a new build. So,
have you always been a stager, or have you fallen into it from a different career?
I've very much fallen into it, Neil. I've always been self-employed. That's the theme that runs through my career. I'm a mathematician by background, so my degree was in maths. My postgrad qualifications are in psychology and in business coaching. So I've brought to this, first of all, from my mathematical background, an absolute passion about the data in the business. So we're not about making things look nice for the sake of it. We're about using data, about using staging as a vehicle to get property sales and as a tool for the property marketing. And that is critically important in what we do. So many agents, so many vendors still conflate interior design with staging, and they're a long way apart. So my mathematical background is about collecting the data about how effective staging is in producing a return on investment for the vendor, and by extension then for the agent. My psychology helps us understand how people think about product marketing, because clearly there's a lot of psychology in product marketing. And of course, a property is often the most expensive product that somebody is ever going to sell. So we work with all of those elements and bring those through. I was previously running a business coaching business and doing business coaching, both one-to-one and creating internal coaching capacity in corporates, and particularly bizarrely in police forces. So that was a lot of my career. I fell into this through my own property portfolio. I'm a property investor and started doing this for my properties in 2008, 2009, got 4 small kids to feed. My developer husband had left at that point, and I had to make it work. So, and gradually agents started phoning me and saying, Elaine, do you think you could just pop over and just tell this client I can't sell their house looking like that? Well, I'll lose the listing if I do it. Could you come and do it for me? You always get good sales on yours. Okay, yeah, okay, whatever. And that went on for a little while. So I started to think, I should be making money out of this, because actually I'm doing quite a lot of this, and it was being very successful. So that was really how Lemon and Lime was born.
Brilliant.
And how do you find those conversations go with the owner? It's a very different conversation, isn't it, with a owner occupied property to a new home that's empty? I mean, do these guys, do they welcome you through the door, or do they wonder what you're doing?
Any and all of that, the whole spectrum, Tom, everything.
Yeah.
I think the advantage I have in coming from a coaching background is that I have 1,000,001 ways of saying to somebody, oh, good Lord, you can't possibly sell it looking like this. Everybody that we work with, so everybody in an occupied home that's selling their home, has a goal. And that goal is to sell the property and move on to the next phase of their life. And what I'm able to do with them is to talk about the goal, where they want to be, where they want to go, what they are looking at then in what they're looking to buy, what they're loving about the things that they're seeing, what they want to go and view, what makes them want to go and view something. And then, of course, it's a relatively straightforward exercise to dial that back and say, so if you were going to look at your home through the eyes of a complete stranger, what would you be seeing, do you think? What questions would you be asking? Because, of course, people know that what they're trying to buy is the vision. They're trying to buy the dream of their next stage of life. And sometimes they will then be able to reflect that actually what they're selling is quite a long way from somebody else's dream. And that's the point where they begin to reach out. They understand the problem, and they understand that I'm sitting in their kitchen drinking their coffee, and I'm probably part of the solution. So that's when they begin to ask. And we then talk, a lot of our vendors, because we work in the premium end of the property market, a lot of our vendors are kind of like me. I'm lucky, I fit our vendor profile very well. And they perhaps haven't sold a property for 10, 15, 20, 40 years in some cases. And when they bought their home, things like Rightmove didn't exist, Instagram, Facebook marketing, all of those things weren't a thing. And there's a bit where I'm able to help them understand, and you will know this from what you guys do, the massive changes in property marketing that have had to happen through the online presence of every single property that comes to market. And looking at that and thinking about that and helping them understand that. Many of our clients are business people. They understand the business principles around marketing. And what I'm doing then is creating that conversation. So it really isn't about, and we are emphatic that it's not about their taste. It's not about how their home looks. It is about a marketing exercise for their biggest capital asset to enable them to have the financial freedom as far as they possibly can to move on to the next life stage, to move into their next dream for them.
Yeah. And what's the process then, Elaine? So an agent will call you up and say, I've got this property, it's stuck, or you've made the vendor wants to go ahead with you. What happens next?
So 6 steps really to getting the property on the market. So first step is that the agent asks their vendor if they can pass on their details for a no obligation, free consultation with us about the presentation before it's launched. Or if they're using this to win an instruction, and many of our agents use the pitch, including staging, to win an instruction that's already on the market and has got stuck, it's a much, much, much happier conversation to say, I think we need to think about your presentation. I think your price is right. Let's think about your presentation. It's a much happier conversation than going, sorry, price is all wrong. We've got to drop you by 50,000 or whatever it is. So the first stage is asking permission to pass on details. Either I or one of my team will then call and just talk about goals, talk about what they're trying to achieve, talk about timeline. We'll arrange to visit either in real life or virtually. That decision is usually either geographically determined or, depending on the phase of COVID we happen to be in this week. Fourthly, we send out a quotation following that visit, or a proposal, which includes a quotation for any work that we believe ought to be done. The vendor's then free to do it themselves, or they'll have costs for us going in to help. Fifth stage then is that they agree the work and we sort out the timeline. Normally, from agreement of quote to property being ready to launch is a maximum of 2 weeks. And then last, final stage, woohoo, get it out there, get the sale.
Do you have a massive warehouse of furniture, or do you tend to call on it? Do you have suppliers who you can use, or because obviously every property is going to be unique?
Yes, and because we don't work with standard boxes, because a lot of our properties are occupied, and we work with a lot of developers who are building niche developments, so very, very nice high-end properties where maybe they're only building 1 or 2 on a site. So all our furniture has to be unique for those properties. It has to work in that type of property rather than in a standard box. And it also has to be of very high quality because of the price point of the properties that we're selling, or that we're staging. So we do have a very large warehouse full of furniture and a team that manages that. And not only furniture, we have artwork, we have soft furnishings, we have just acres and acres of accessories that we can very quickly move from our warehouse into a property. That's part of no agent wants to wait for a property to be staged. They want it on the market now. We need to hit the spring market. We need to hit the week after Easter. We need to hit September when the kids have all gone back to school. You know the game. And we have to be able to ship everything in very quickly. So we have a lot of stock. We also work with key suppliers. If I go to a furniture show, for example, where we're perhaps sourcing new suppliers, my first question to a supplier is, what's your lead time? If their lead time is longer than a week, can't work with you. Really sorry, love your furniture, can't work with you. Because we need suppliers that can supply furniture to us in very quick time. So yeah.
Is made.coms out of the picture then, doesn't it? That's really interesting. So, I mean, you mentioned taste. I think it was Neil that mentioned taste earlier. And that's a thing we grapple with here actually is taste, because everyone's got a personal taste. And so when you walk into a property and you give advice, I mean, how's that conversation go? Because I'm guessing that there's going to be a different buyer profile for each of those properties, and you could either go really niche and you can make it look really out there, and really from an interior design perspective you can make it look really wow, but that might put a lot of people off. So do you find yourself that you have you're grappling with Magnolia now and again? The balance, isn't it?
It's an interesting question, Tom. It really is, because, as you say, taste is dramatically variable across different buyer profiles, and also, of course, that there is this conflation with interior design, and interior design is very client focused. We're really not client focused. What we are is market focused. So we're trying to draw in as big an audience as we possibly can. So there's a certain amount of currently neutral, but neutral certainly isn't magnolia. It's what I would describe as the Farrow and Ball shades of mud in our world. It's the very soft, neutral. Yeah, and we use lots of those. And then, of course, if we're identifying a property that has a buyer market that is perhaps younger, is coming out of a city, which of course we've had a lot of over the last couple of years, where they're coming out of properties that have been quite design-led, for example, and are now moving into the country, and what they're believing is that, oh gosh, everything's really, really cluttered, really dull, very, very dated. Then it's putting in enough accents. So that might be a really nice chair. It might be a wall hanging, a painting. It might be soft furnishings that they can identify with it. Oh, wow, that shade of raspberry is so in just now. I love it, and that's the bit that draws them in. But actually, that's an element that will be taken away very quickly. So it's bringing in a big audience. Equally, somebody that hates that particular shade will look and go, oh, well, actually, it's only a cushion. I can move that. But it's not the walls. It's not the carpets. It's not the furniture. It's not the big things.
Have you ever had a love it or list it moment? Do you know the program Love It or List It?
Yeah, I love that.
Has anyone turned around and gone, hey, you've transformed my house?
Absolutely. And the agents hate you for it. We actually had a classic example of that quite early on in the business. And I had wanted to work with this particular agent because they were selling the kind of properties we wanted to work with locally for a very long time. And I had approached his secretary, who absolutely wasn't going to let me through the door to talk to him on a number of occasions. And what's different about you? No, we don't use staging. No, it's not a thing in this country. All the things that agents were saying 4 or 5 years ago. It's not quite so, there are far more enlightened agents now who do understand the return on investment for staging than there were at that point. But no, there was no way I was getting through that particular door. So a few weeks on, I went to pick up my daughter from a birthday party. And I rocked up at this party to collect her with my overalls on, because I'd been painting a property for a friend in the days when I still was very hands-on, doing some painting for a friend who was bringing their property to market. And I rocked up in my overalls to collect my daughter. My daughter's friend, whose party it was, her mother said to me, oh, what do you do? Because obviously I apologise for arriving at her beautiful house in such a mess. What is it that you do? And I explained to her that, about staging and about, and she said, oh, that's really interesting. And we drank tea and, and it was all very pleasant, and I went home again. Anyway, a week later, she phoned me and she said, Elaine, we're selling. We're being relocated for work. I understand what you do. I think I might like to talk to you. Could you come over? Went over. There were, at that point, she had 3 children still living at home. They were relocating quite rapidly for work. They were both consultants in the NHS, so absolutely no time. We were working all the hours that got sense, and no time to sort this house out. So I whizzed in with my team, did lots of decluttering, lent them a little bit of, or hired them a little bit of furniture, a few accessories, zhuzhed up the whole thing. And she called the estate agent. Dream. She called the estate agent I had wanted to be working with for years. And he came over, listed this property at 2.5 million, and there was an open day. an open weekend, and I was there in the background making teas and coffees because I wanted to meet the estate agent face to face. And he walks around his property and he comes over, and I said to him, "Do you like a cup of coffee, Gary?" And he said, "This is very polished, Elaine." And we've worked with him ever since. But then he was really cross with me because the family fell back in love with the property, decided that although they were really relocating, they were going to keep this property and use it for family holiday. I won that one. Sadly, the agent didn't, but I did become very good friends and have done a lot of work with that agent as well. So yeah.
So you've talked a lot about having, you know, enlightened agents, and I'm operating in a similar sort of world. There are some agents who can see the benefit of having well-written copy, and others just will never see that. Do you find, and you mentioned sort of the world has changed, one thing that has changed in the last few years is virtual staging.
Yeah.
So how do you think that fits into actual physical staging, which you provide?
So we provide virtual staging as well. Virtual staging has a great spot in the marketplace, if you like, and needs to be used wisely. The use of virtual staging increased dramatically, and the tech used for it increased really significantly improved over the whole COVID period, when, of course, viewings had to be virtual. So there were a lot of virtual stagings being created, and indeed virtual tours from staging that was in no way real. And that was really important during that period and still has its place. For me, the best use of virtual staging is for off-plan marketing. So where a developer, for example, has got their plans agreed, they've got their planning permission, they know what it is they're going to build out, working with a virtual stager at that point to get not just CGIs, those CGIs where you can see the furniture, you can see the lines where the furniture sits on the floor around the edges, and you can see all the kind of, some of it is hideous, cheap, hideous stuff. And there is some absolutely fantastic virtual staging. I would guarantee that the stuff that we do, the guys that we work with to produce that, you wouldn't know. And so that has a fantastic place in off-plan marketing to create those sales and to really generate an interest in a site and to get reservations going on a site. I strongly believe that once a site is built out, or once a property, if you put virtual staging into a property that is empty but complete, then the viewer falls in love with those photographs on Rightmove. And whatever you put on there, you can put all your disclaimers, this is virtual, it's not real, blah, blah, blah. They don't see it, they don't feel it. And then what they feel when they arrive in the house and doors opened is instant disappointment, massive disappointment. And if you're trying to sell a house to somebody, you really, really, really don't want, I would suggest, disappointment to be their first emotion over that threshold. So I think virtual staging, fantastic for something that's not real or you can't get into for whatever reason. If a property is real, then the staging should be real.
So for that reason, do you work with investors who might be sort of doing up tired properties and flipping them? Because, I've had experience of doing that. And obviously you can create a blank canvas. But again, people don't fall in love with that particularly.
No. We, investors that are doing a lot of the kind of the flip, we are too expensive because we work premium end of the market. And for a lot of the smaller end properties that happens in, our furniture is too big. It's very simple. There are a lot of stages that work in that market with real furnishing, and that absolutely is a great market. We work with investors who are doing the bigger end, the higher end of that, big renovations, that kind of thing. Or, for example, we've got one going on at the moment that's a renovation of a huge property, really beautiful property in a very nice area that's being converted into 8 apartments. So we'll do the furnishing real in there. We'll get the off-plan marketing going and then do the real following on from that. So
does the vendor always pay, or do agents pay occasionally?
That is it's a really interesting point right now, Tom. Generally, the vendor pays. Occasionally, we've had agents who want the property on the market looking great so badly that they pay and then take the staging fee back from the vendor at the point of sale. I would love to be in a position more like the American model, where actually the real estate agents are prepared to take the staging fee from their fee. So they're charging a fee that's actually realistic to market a property and including the staging as part of that. That's where I would love to get to. But of course, you know, while we play this race to the bottom over fees and agents are charging 1% or 0.75%, there is not a chance of that happening. When we get to the point where agents are confident enough to charge 2.5% or 3%, then we can begin to look at bringing the staging fee within the agent's fee for that. Because most of our staging on average is probably somewhere, it falls somewhere between 0.5 and 1.5% would be the staging fee. And to have that included as an overall marketing fee would be amazing. But we're not there yet. At the moment, it's usually vendor.
Which leads me on to an interesting question, perhaps to close off. Where do you see staging going in the next 5, 10, 15 years?
And I think that it's a great question. As you know, and as we spoke about before, Neil, the staging industry was pretty much non-existent. It was very, very tiny in the UK, except if you were to include show homes in that, that's always been done. But staging is much more about the homes that wouldn't ordinarily have been a traditional show home, if you like, and of course in the occupied market as well. And the increase in staging has been dramatic over the last few years, and in particular, I mean, for example, as a business through 2020, you know, when the market opened up again in May 2020, our year end is the end of May, and from that May to the following May of our year end, we had 50% growth in the business. And I think that was twofold. One, obviously the market in itself went crazy, but also agents having had time to reflect on the marketing, having had time to reflect on all the stuff that's out there and, you know, look at other markets. There was a lot of fear, I think, and a lot of agents going to the wall, of course, you know, some of the agents just not surviving through that initial lockdown period. And agents started to think about what they could do differently. The self-employed model is a really great example of where agents need to make themselves stand out. And the rise of that model is significantly contributing to the rise of staging in the UK, because everybody is competing. They can't go on competing over fees forever. You know, agents just can't go on. There's a limit to that, you know, before actually you're actually paying people to sell their house for them. And, you know, and then where are you earning the money from? Well, you know, that's quite tricky, isn't it? So in order to create much more value in the proposition, there have been far more agents willing to consider staging. And I think that will, in itself, it becomes a kind of a cyclical thing. Well, that property down the road was staged, that they got 10% over asking. I've got mine on the market and it won't sell, and it's exactly the same. What have I got to do? Oh, I've got to go and stage it. So it becomes a self-perpetuating thing, and that's certainly happening. So I think we will see the rise of staging Currently, 31% of properties in the US, of agents in the US are staging every single property they bring to the market.
Wow.
In the UK, it's less than 1%.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got quite a long way to go. I think it's definitely a really exciting time and such a lot of growth potential. And agents begin to understand the return on investment, not it staging being a nice to have and about, pretty cushions or whatever.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you very much. I'm sure a lot of our listeners will have got massive value from that. I know I have. If anybody is interested in finding out a little bit more or learning, what's the best way to find out more or get in touch?
So go to our website, so lemonandlimeinteriors.co.uk, Google me, Elaine Penhaul, and I will come up. Find me on LinkedIn. Just get in touch. We'd love to talk to you. If you want to talk about how staging can help you in your business as an agent, then we would absolutely love to talk to you.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Elaine.
Thanks, Elaine.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Property Marketing Show. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. See you next time.